We're live.
Good morning. Welcome to the September 15, 2025 meeting of the Finance and Facilities Committee of the University of Rhode Island Board of Trustees. The meeting is being held in person with committee members participating remotely. At this time, Board Secretary Michelle Carriere will conduct a roll call attendance to determine if a quorum is present. Please clearly respond present via WebEx or present in person where your name is called.
Vahid Onjazietti,
Present via WebEx.
Armin Sabatoni,
Present via WebEx.
Maria Ducharme, Michael Fascitelli,
Present via WebEx.
Joseph Formicola,
Present via WebEx.
Courtney Nicolato,
Present via WebEx.
Christine Bovey,
Present via WebEx.
Mark Parlange,
Present via WebEx.
And I see Maria just joined too.
Yeah.
Maria Ducharme. Oh, Maria, I think
Mute.
you're on mute, but we hear that you're present. Oh, wait. Okay, we see that you're present. Thank you. We have a quorum.
I don't believe Margot is on, correct? I
Oh,
haven't seen
Margot,
her.
looks like Margot just joined too.
Oh,
Great.
Margot just joined. So
And Margot
Board
Cook
Chair
is
Margot Cook is also present.
perfect. Thank you.
We do have a quorum. Reminder to all members for the benefit of our audience and the note takers, please clearly identify yourself whenever you comment, make a motion or a second to a motion. Participants using WebEx are required to keep their cameras on as remote members, and all persons present at the meeting location must be clearly audible and visible to each other. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that the University of Rhode Island occupies the traditional stomping grounds of the Narragansett Nation and the Niantic people. Are there any proposed amendments to the published agenda? There being no amendments, I'd like to move to sorry, just bear with me, folks. The first order of business, which is the approval of the minutes. Minutes of the January 26, 2025 meeting of the Facilities, Finance and Facilities Committee. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 26, 2025 meeting?
This is Armin, so moved.
Joe, second.
Any discussions on the motion? There being no discussion or no further discussion, ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? And the motion passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is item number 2, discussion items. The first item on the agenda will be the review of the preliminary FY 2025 year-end numbers. Abby, please take that away.
Great. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. So here, I want to just give you a brief update on what we're seeing for our FY25 year-end numbers. I do have a few slides that I hope will be pulled up. Great. Thank you so much. So the first slide just gives you a preliminary look of where we are in our FY25 Fund 100 actuals versus budget. The audit is underway right now, and we'll bring it to the committee for approval in November. These numbers are as of June 30th. So that's the end of our fiscal year. Next slide, please. Next slide. Great. So just at a very high level, as I've done in previous years, you can see in the second column FY25 allocations. So that's essentially what was our FY25 budget. We had budgeted for $548.9 million in revenue and $554.6 million in expense. We went into FY25 expecting a $5.7 million operating budget shortfall. Our FY25 pre-audit actuals, the next column, you can see it says as of 9/3/25. Just to be clear, the end of the fiscal year was the end of June, but we do some accounting adjustments as we're closing the year-end books. So 9/3 is the time of the accounting adjustments. I just want to clarify that. So our revenue is down $525.6 million, which is not as much of a surprise given our challenges last year around enrollment. Our expenses were also down, which is $524.1 million. So we're actually looking at a $1.5 million Fund 100 operating surplus. So the next slide talks about the explanation behind that variance. I will say that we did take some measures internally, knowing that we had some enrollment challenges, largely due to circumstances out of our control. For example, the FAFSA, which resulted in us not meeting our enrollment targets. We are grateful that we had a positive operating margin, especially as we go into FY26 and beyond. We continue to face some of the same challenges, which we'll talk about later around the budget request, with free and reduced tuition offered by institutions and systems in neighboring states, and then the continued impact of hope and promise. And obviously, we have a very rapidly evolving federal landscape that is resulting in a lot of uncertainty. I also wanted to take this opportunity, if nobody has any questions on the FY25 year-end results, to give an update on the budget model and a new effort we're undertaking on long-range planning. So before I do that, any questions on this? Okay, next slide, please. So as you all know, we've been working for the last several years to implement a new budget model at URI. FY26 is what we're calling a budget model transition year. So we have put a lot of our new budget model processes in place. We're focused this year on the development of subvention, which is essentially how we allocate funding to colleges based on performance and mission, and also working on our reserve management policy. We did, coming into this fiscal year, complete a balanced budget initiative to more closely align our budget with historical spend and strengthen the foundational budget as we go into full budget model implementation. So if you recall, this year, as I mentioned, we have a $1.5 million shortfall operating surplus envisioned at the end of the year. Last year, we were anticipating a shortfall, but we had a significant surplus, which is great. However, we would like our budget going into the year and our actuals at the end of the year to align more closely. So we undertook an effort to look at historical spend and positions in place and readjust our FY26 baseline. But we are continuing to engage our deans, our vice presidents, our faculty and staff around key milestones for our budget model transition, and we are planning to go live on July 1, 2026, fiscal year 27, with the full budget model implementation. On the next slide, I'd like to share with the board, we're very excited that we've started an effort to work on a long-range plan. We are actually required to submit kind of a 3-year view of our budget, but we haven't necessarily had the internal structures in place to do that 3-year view. So we're developing an inaugural long-range plan model that will forecast all funds within a multi-year framework. So this aligns with our priority 4 of supporting sustainable decision-making, empowering the university of the future. So in this model, we're going to look at areas such as tuition, financial aid, research funding, and staffing costs. We will be able to input various factors to look at the model based on what we see coming down the pike. It'll be Excel-based, but we are excited when we go transition to our new ERP. We did purchase a Workday budget module, so we'll be able to transition this Excel-based model into our new ERP, but that's a few years out. Our goal is to have an initial draft to share with this committee in October, but I wanted to just let you know we were working on it. It's something that we've wanted to do for a long time, but the budget model took priority. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have on that. Okay.
Questions? Good. Thank you, Abby. So item number 2B is approval under the delegation of authority to the president relating to land and property. Once again, Abby Benson, please.
Great. So as you all are very aware, we have an obligation to report to you any actions taken under the president's delegation of authority related to real estate since the prior board meeting. So we've had 2 transactions as outlined in your memo. The first was a facility use agreement between the Office of the Post-Secondary Commissioner of Rhode Island and URI for use of classroom space in the Rhode Island Nursing Education Center for our MBA program. The second was a lease between Bryant and URI on behalf of the Small Business Development Center, which, if you aren't aware, is located at URI, to use office space within the Bryant Entrepreneurship and Leadership Center in Smithfield. Any questions?
Great.
Nope.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda is the executive session. May I have a motion that the committee convene into the executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A5 for discussion related to the acquisition or lease of real property for public purposes or of the disposition of publicly held property wherein advanced public information would be detrimental to the public interest, and Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A7 for discussion regarding a matter related to the question of the investment of public funds, which includes any investment plan or matter related thereto where the premature disclosure would adversely affect the public interest. Specifically, consideration of the authority to complete negotiations on certain financial terms related to the development, construction, and financing of new university housing, and recommendation for approval to the URI Board of Trustees. And Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A7 for discussion of matters related to the question of the investment of public funds, which include any investment plan or matter related thereto where the premature disclosure would adversely affect the public interest, specifically Ryan Boss Financial Operations. No action will be taken in executive session.
Motion, Mike.
The second,
Courtney.
any discussion on the motion? There being no discussion, I ask for a voice vote. Voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion is unanimous. Approved. The committee will now convene into executive session for the reasons specified. It is anticipated that the executive session will last approximately 20 minutes, after which the committee will reconvene in open session. The live stream will be paused during the executive session and will resume once the executive session has ended and the committee reconvenes in open session. For all those participating via WebEx, please confirm by saying yes that no other person is present or able to hear the discussion at the remote location. If you do not move automatically into the breakout session, join the session when prompted on your computer screen by clicking on the Join Now button. Attendees not participating in the executive session will be moved to the waiting room.
Yes.
So may I have that
Yes.
acknowledgement that there's no?
Yes.
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 Okay. I do believe now we can move into Michelle, correct?
Correct. We will be sending you a message right now on your screen. So just hit the join now. Perfectly. Moving right along.
and really maintaining the assets. So
And we are back, Michelle.
We are back. We're live. Just a reminder, you're defaulted all on mute.
The committee is now convened into open session. The first order of business is an open session is a motion to seal the executive session minutes. May I have a motion to seal the
Move.
executive session minutes?
I'm and move it.
Joe second.
Any discussions? There being no discussions, I ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Any abstentions? The motion to seal the September 15, 2025 executive session minutes is approved. Next item on the agenda are action items. Number 4, the first action item, consideration of the University of Rhode Island total budget request for FY 2027 and recommendation for approval, which I think we're going to defer that, correct? On the action, the vote part, Abby?
Yes, I think there was a desire to defer it, but I'm happy to walk through the presentation quickly so I can answer any questions you might have before the board meeting next week. So if that's
Yeah,
okay.
I would suggest we do that if there's no objections from any other board members.
Great. And I will try to get through this relatively quickly. There's a lot of information here that you have in your packet. It should be very familiar. We come to you every September asking for our FY27 budget request. So I'll try to walk through.
I'm just going to ask one more
answering.
question. Michelle,
Oh.
you're confirming that we have a quorum because we're not going to vote on this one. Should we go to the other 2 or 3 that we're going to vote on first while we have everyone?
We will still have a quorum when Mike
Okay.
and Courtney leave. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Abby, go ahead.
No, you're good. Okay, so this is our FY27 budget request that we ask for every year in preparation for submitting our budget to the state in September 30th. I'm going to walk through this presentation, but I do want to acknowledge John Pullman, our AVP for Financial Strategy and Planning, who leads our budget office and helps develop these materials, who I know is online as well today. Next slide, please. So before I get started, I'm going to give you a snapshot on FY26, where we landed. So just so everyone's clear, we're working in 3 fiscal years at any given time. So what I talked to you about earlier in the meeting was where we ended in FY25. Right now, we're in FY26. So this is where we landed with the state appropriation for FY26. And then I'm going to be talking future FY27, which is a fiscal year that starts next July. So this is just a summary of how we asked for our state request in FY26. The bottom line is that we asked for funding to support our operating shortfall, our current service level, and our strategic initiatives. We asked for $151.6 million for our general state appropriation. We received our base operating budget. We did not receive any funding for our operating shortfall. We did receive $4.5 million in our current service level request, no funding for strategic initiatives. So our final FY26 general appropriation was $115.3 million. So this is just a snapshot of where we landed in FY26. Next slide, please. So this is just a version for the board. I know it's helpful to see our whole budget for FY26. So this is our entire budget. What I just shared with you before is just our Fund 100 state appropriation, which is a small slice of this overall budget. But so you can see where it fits kind of overall. Obviously, our largest source of revenue coming into the campus is our tuition and non-auxiliary fees. We also have our research and overhead, our indirect costs bucket, which is 14% of our overall budget. Our general state appropriation is 11%. That's that $115.3 million. That's the green slice that I showed in the prior slide. And then we have a few other sources of revenue. So the green slice is what we're talking about today relative to our entire university budget. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay, next slide. So our FY27 operating budget request. So this is that similar view that I just showed you for FY26, but it's for FY27. This assumes all of our funding is actually provided by the state. So the pie chart in the middle of the slide is our revenue across all funds. The general ratio of the various pie pieces is very similar to what we saw in FY26, although if fully funded, you would see our general state appropriation would go from 11% of our budget to 13% of our budget. I will also note, similar to last year, we have seen recent increases in RICAP, which we're so grateful for. And those fall under either state appropriation. So they're the light blue slice, and they're More details are over in the pie chart to the right. So our RICAP support from the state and ask for the state has increased, and that's primarily due to the athletic complex renewal, which was a $65 million project, but also increases to our asset protection and our building envelope support and ADA access support. So again, this is big picture budget. Next slide shows how we would actually spend the budget. So not surprisingly, salaries and wages and fringe benefits are our biggest cost at the university, as they are at any university. That's about 29% of our institution's all funds operating expenses. I'll talk a little bit about financial aid here, which is 15% of our overall budget, and that's internal financial aid. That is money that we use to help support our students. The light green slice of the pie is external financial aid, which is money that comes from the federal government and other sources into us, and then we distribute it right to students. So it's sort of a pass-through. So again, this is just a big picture of how we spend our budget. And now I'm going to dive into the state ask for our general appropriation. So if we go to the next slide, please. Okay, so when we submit our budget, we have to make a series of assumptions. So if you recall, we made a decision, the board approved a decision 2 years ago to provide a budget to the state at the end of September that has certain tuition and fee assumptions and enrollment assumptions. Then we come back to the board in February once we're post-census, which is the date that we see how many students are enrolled in the academic year. And we have a little more insights into what our peers are doing. And we come and actually ask for tuition and fee approvals in February. So what we're submitting to the state is based on an assumption. So this page outlines what our assumptions are. You can see here on the upper left, we're planning for undergraduate full-time enrollment to increase slightly compared to our FY26 budgeted levels. The FY27 budget does incorporate the loss of our enrollment last year. We obviously we'll see that loss for several years because the class stays with us for a few years, but we are very positive about our applications and our enrollment this year. It looks to be exceeding targets, although we won't have our official census till October. So we've taken that all into account in our enrollment projections. We also, on the right-hand side, have graduate full-time enrollments. You'll see that we're anticipating slight growth in both brick and mortar and URI online programs. Graduate programs remain a strategic priority for URI, and we'll continue to work closely with the deans of the colleges to evaluate forecasts. We do have a number of new programs coming online this year and anticipate more coming online next year. Finally, at the bottom is our tuition rates. So you'll see that last year, if you recall, the board did approve a 3.5% across the board in-state, out-of-state tuition increase. In 26-27, we are including a 3% as our baseline assumption. So we will come back to the board in February and ask for what our actual tuition and fee increase will be, or tuition increase will be. Next slide talks about our enrollment considerations. And, Dean is here. He can answer any questions you may have. I'll do my best. But essentially, as I mentioned, we're at an all-time high for our fall 25 undergraduate applications. We have a lot of growth in high achieving students, which is a strong sign for URI, even though we're facing declining demographics. As you all know, we're very proud of our recent designations by the Wall Street Journal as #1 public in New England and an R1 research institution by the Carnegie Foundation. And we also are seeing that we're really competing against a different set of peers. When we see where students that didn't come to URI go, we see that set of peers is really improving in ranking. We continue to face challenges with state free and reduced tuition programs in our surrounding areas, but also in Rhode Island in the form of Hope and Promise. And we're also continuing to monitor federal impacts. While FAFSA has largely been fixed, those issues that were present last year, as you all know, there's a lot of discussion at the federal side, on the federal front, about tuition and also around federal aid programs, loans, Pell Grants. So we're always monitoring what's happening there because those programs directly impact our students. And then finally, housing. We are working hard to get to the housing problem, to kickstart our housing and residential life master plan, but it continues to be an issue. especially our upperclassmen students want to know that they'll have a place to stay on campus. More of them want to be on campus in the later years of URI. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is our baseline fee assumptions. So these are mandatory fees that the board approves, which are fees that all undergraduate students pay. We are seeking an increase in 3 fees this year. One is for the Fitness and Wellness Center fee. That's largely to help with capital expenses related to replacing equipment. That is an incredibly well-used facility on our campus. The second is an increase to the Memorial Union fee. As I think the board knows, we are hoping to renovate the Memorial Union, but in the meantime, we do need to do some capital repairs, and this fee will help with that. And then finally, we're seeking a 7.7% increase to the building fee, which is for the Ryan Center. Similar to the Memorial Union, the Ryan Center also has significant capital and repair needs, and we're seeking this increase in fee to help us address those needs as the building is aging, and we want to make sure that it's in great shape for our students and our community. So
Hey,
you see that-
Abby, why is the number 211 here versus the 196 versus the?
So-
We talked about raising the 392.
yeah, so it's a great point, Mike, and we show this slide the same way every year, and I get the same question. So this is by semester. So if you look down at the bottom, you have to double the by semester to see the annual fee. And I think I try to be consistent, so you're seeing the same thing every year, but I think I might need to just change it next year because I get the same question. So those numbers, the total per year is down at the bottom, but those are per semester fees.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next slide. Okay, this is our general appropriation request. So if you recall, we started FY26 with a state appropriation of $115.3 million. We are anticipating an operating budget shortfall of $3.8 million, which is down from last year. Our current service level, which is essentially what we call sort of keeping the lights on, what we need to do to stay able to pay our employees, to pay our utilities, our debt service, et cetera. We're asking for an increase of $23.6 million. We're also asking for $14.4 million for a variety of strategic initiatives that I'll go through later. So that will be a total of $157.1 million. The way the state budget goes in, we also have to account for anticipated tuition and fee revenue. So that's based on those assumptions of the fee increases and tuition increases, which would be $13.2 million. So we back that out. So our grand total request is $143.9 million for our general state appropriation for the state. The next slide takes that current service level line item, the 23.6, and breaks it down into the details. The 2 things I'll point out here are as in every year, the largest piece of that bucket is $12.1 million, which is our cost of living adjustments and contractual and compensation adjustments. I will also show that utilities and insurance rate have increased. So I think you all are seeing this at home. I mentioned it to some of you that we saw overall a 30% increase to our utilities last year, and our insurance costs are also increasing. So that's another piece of note in CSL. And then finally, we're very excited that we have 2 new buildings coming online soon, the Fine Arts Center and the Ocean Robotics Laboratory. We have started a best practice of budgeting for operational increases for those buildings so that they have the appropriate custodial and repair and maintenance personnel. So we did build that into our current service level. Next slide, please. Our strategic initiatives will look very familiar. Last year, we asked similarly for 4 strategic initiatives in line with our strategic priorities. The first is broadening in our impact, which is asking for funding for 10 faculty members across areas of importance to the university. The second is enhancing student achievement, which is asking for academic advisors. We recently had an external overview of our advising structure, and we need to increase the number of advisors. Last year, we asked for 20 advisors. We are going to internally reallocate funds to kickstart that and fund 7 advisors because it's so critical for student success, but we are asking support for the remaining 13. Strategic priority 3, last year we also asked for support for operating for the talent development program and our National Guard and tribal scholarships. And this year we have a new proposal, although it's still in development. We're still gathering some information, which is called an Anchor in Rhode Island Merit Scholarship, which would be really focused on attracting the top Rhode Island students to stay in URI in alignment with the governor's 2030 plan. Again, we wanted to put this here for the committee, but we're still seeking doing some research and doing some outreach on this proposed program. And then finally, our strategic priority 4, similar to last year, is powering the University of the Future, IT modernization. This is largely related to the upcoming implementation of our new ERP. We're going to Workday, similar to the state, and also some AV and classroom technology upgrades. Next slide, please. So I think it's really important to just show on this slide how our FY27 request aligns with the URI Focus 2030 strategic plan, but also the RI 2030 plan. If you can see here, the RI 2030 has priorities that really align very well with each of our strategic priorities. We're trying to strengthen educational outcomes, retain our top talent, and raise Rhode Islanders' earning income potential. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we have a new proposal, which is an Anchor in Rhode Island Merit Scholarship, which would be a state-funded matching merit scholarship to double our top merit award that we currently give to students based on merit. This is directly in line with the governor's 2030 priorities, also strengthens the state's talent pipeline. We do estimate, again, as I mentioned, we're still looking into this, but we're estimating a retention of 250 additional top students annually to enhance future workforce and economic competitiveness of the state. Next slide. So I want to bring up the FTE cap. So many of you may be familiar that this was an issue last year where we exceeded our FTE cap. There are a lot of numbers here, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but the bottom line is that most Rhode Island agencies have an FTE cap, means they can only have so many full-time equivalent staff working. We are subject to that cap. We have a general cap and a third-party cap, which is just for research-funded positions. In FY25, we exceeded our overall FTE cap. We did go to the legislature and request a 25% increase to the cap last year. That would have been 642 additional FTE authorized, and the legislature did give us 100, which we're very grateful for. Seeing as we were already over the cap, that 100 is now sort of whittled down, and we are at risk of exceeding the cap again in the next fiscal year, which is why we're continuing to ask for a significant increase to our baseline FTE cap. Next slide, please. So why do we need these additional FTE? Part of it is that we have seen increased
Question for you
investment.
on the FTE cap. How do we compare to institutions like us percentage-wise to the number of students per FTEs?
We don't have that. So we don't have that for an overall number. And if you look at the last bullet on this slide, we have it for various areas. Like I mentioned, for advising, for example, our ratio currently is around 900 to 1 students per advisor. It should be about 300 to 1. I will say if you go to facilities or HR or legal, we're generally below our peers in many areas compared to especially R1 research universities. So we don't have one number for across the board that we use as an industry, but per area, we're generally below our peers. So just some upfront big picture concepts here. The first is that the state has increased their investment in URI over the last few fiscal years, which we're so grateful for. But we also have had enrollment growth. We've become an R1 university. So we also have a board of trustees, all of you that have increased responsibilities. So there have been a lot of reasons why we need to increase our staffing at URI to keep up pace with our enrollment growth and also keep up pace with what we're trying to accomplish and what the state has invested in us to accomplish. So we need the FTE cap to make sure that we're delivering on our mission to our students. There is also kind of an interesting issue that we have. Our general FTE cap includes all of our auxiliary personnel, which is about 20 to 25% of our staff. So if you think about it, auxiliaries are designed to be self-supporting. So their budget is based on who's using their services. So if there are more students in housing or more students in dining, they need to increase their staffing to meet the needs of those students. So if the FTE cap doesn't keep up with that, specifically in the auxiliaries, it's really challenging. It's challenging on the general FTE side as well, because we need advisors, we need people that are plowing snow, we need people that are doing all the things to help meet our students' needs. So we will continue to be asking for this increase.
Let's stay with that for 1 second.
Yep.
I think you did a great job explaining how important, more so than I've ever seen before, on why we need the FTEs. But we're also asking them for the money to fund the FTEs when we put it in this form. Is that correct?
No, so the FTE cap
Well,
doesn't,
ahead.
it's not a 1-for-1 because our general state appropriation is only about 14% of our budget. Our FTE cap is for our entire budget. So that green slice of the pie, that's the state funded portion. All the other slices of the pie also support people. So
it
it's
comes
not a
out of the
1-for-1.
auxiliary money.
Correct, auxiliaries, research.
Are they aware of that at the General Assembly? Or they
I
need to we need to make that a little clearer to them when we're asking for the gross number of the FTEs.
I believe they're aware of it, but we continue to advocate and continue to try to explain, and we'll do it again this fall and going into the next session to make sure that everyone's clear on that. I do think there's a philosophy that tuition and fees, even though those are supporting our FTE, are also sort of taxpayer dollars. So they're kind of considered state funding, even though it's not directly coming from the state. So that's why the FTE cap applies to us the way it should. Oh, sorry about this.
Okay.
But
So,
I
going back
appreciate
to
that.
that question I asked for the numbers, this is where I'm coming from, and I don't know the answer to this. So looks like we're like at a ratio like 4.5 to close to 5 to 1 on the students to FTE, something like that. Is that if your numbers are far better than other institutions like ourselves, that's a good selling point, I think. So if you could have a comp for that. I don't know where it is. It may be worse. I don't know. But if it's better, I would like urge you to look at that. So when you go to kind of get that increase to say, hey, we're running at 4.5. Most other institutions are running 3 to 1. I don't know what the number is, right? So I'm just putting it in your mind that if, as Armin said, this is really good detail, right? There could be one more supporting document that I would think we're running more efficient than a lot of other places because of the way our budgets are. So it might be helpful to you. That's all.
Yep,
The reason I
thank
was
you.
going there. So
Yep, thank you so much. We'll take a look at that. Okay, I think I have one more slide on FTE. We go to the next slide. Again, this is really about how URI's people power is very much in line with the RI 2030 plan with the governor. More faculty advisors have stronger retention graduate rates. We have more career services and industry partnerships. We have people that are working on that to connect students to high wage jobs. Our competitive staffing helps retain our Rhode Island students. And obviously each new FTE is a job in Rhode Island, which strengthens the overall Rhode Island economy. Next slide, please. Okay, just to wrap it up, this is our traditional P&L view that we show every year with our FY25 pre-audit actuals, our FY26 budget, and our FY27 request. The only thing I will note here is that our external student aid, we are projecting conservatively a negative income on external student aid just because we're watching what's happening on the federal front. But I would say the other revenue and expense increases are relatively in line with prior years.
So, Mr. Chairman, let me make a suggestion. I don't see why we can't move to pass the projected 2027 budget minus the anchor scholarship that they still need to refine, which we could take just that up at the board meeting.
I agree. I was going to suggest the same thing, that we do our vote to recommend. Well, the board still has to approve anyway. So we recommend it to the board for approval, right?
Yes,
And I
yes.
think we can do that. I would suggest that we do that at this meeting.
Yeah.
So, all right, then with that in mind, any other discussion on that from the committee members? So with that in mind, may I have a motion to recommend the approval of the university's FY 2027 total budget request minus the anchor scholarships to be refined later as presented in the enclosure.
I move it. This is Armin.
Second, Mike.
Ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item B is consideration of certain documents relative to development and construction and financing of the university housing and recommendation for approval to URI Board of Trustees. Abby, sorry, it's you again.
Thank you. So we continue to work diligently to advance the P3 new university housing project. We did receive approval from the board in June on key documents, including our ground lease. Today, we just want to bring two changes that we view as material to the ground lease to the board for approval. The first is that the total number of beds has changed from 1,134 to 1,114, which is a reduction in 20 beds, and that's in Graduate Village. Graduate Village has been a challenging portion of the project just to price it in such a way to make the project viable. So we did decide to reduce beds in that project. I will say it's actually 200 is still more than the beds we have currently in Graduate Village. So it's not a loss of capacity there from what we have prior. And then the second that we are seeking to increase the term of the ground lease from 42 years to 45 years. So the bonds that will be issued, not by us, but by our P3 partner, will be for 40 years. We initially were expecting to have a 2-year tail on that in case there were any issues paying off the debt service. We are asking now to extend that to 45 years, which is in line with industry standard and was requested by our bond insurers. We are having bond insurance for this project, or our P3 partner is, just to make sure that if there are any issues with bond financing not being satisfied, we can do 3 one-year extensions. So the 42 years would stay, but we'd have the option for 3 one-year extensions. We do think this will be viewed favorably as well by potential investors. So those are the 2 requests we're asking for, and there is a resolution that outlined those requests in your packet.
I'm comfortable with any questions from committee?
No.
So there being questions, then may I have a motion to recommend that the board approve changes to the June 27, 2025 resolution approving the project and authorizing each authorized officer to execute development, construction, and financing of the 2 new on-campus undergraduate student housing communities and 1 on-campus graduate student and family housing community at the University of Rhode Island, and to execute documents and to take actions, all as further described in the enclosed resolution.
So
And
moved,
so
Mike.
I'll second.
And thank you, Mike, for the second. I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? The motion is approved unanimously. Next item, consideration of a contract in excess of $5 million and recommendation for approval to the URI Board of Trustees. First
So-
one is Hope Commons renovations. Abby.
Yeah, so very high level, the Hope Commons renovation was already approved on the CIP by the board back in the July timeframe. At the time, the scope was going to be 5.3 million. We have since decided to replace the roof on Hope Commons and do some other work that we think will help get this facility, which is, again, very well-used facility by our students, ready to serve our students. So we're asking for now a total project cost of 10 million. I know you don't normally see capital projects coming through this way because they're normally approved on the SIP, but because this is a significant change to the project budget, we wanted to bring it to the board for approval.
Any questions for Abby?
Good.
There be no questions. May I have a motion to recommend approval of the updated dining facilities improvement projects budget of 10 million as presented on substantially the terms presented at this memo and any attachments, and that any authorized signatory as defined in the policy on approval and execution of contracts and other binding documents be authorized to negotiate the terms of any document relating to such transaction and substantially the terms outlined in the enclosure with any such changes and additional terms as are deemed necessary or appropriate by the authorized signatory.
And so moved.
Second, Joe.
Joe, second, thank you. May I ask for a voice vote? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? This motion is also passed unanimously. Next item in consideration of the contract in excess of $5 million recommendation for approval to URI Board of Trustees for Atlantic Control Systems, Inc.
Great, thank you. So this is another contract we're seeking for approval on, which is a change order to our existing contract with Atlantic Controls, which conducts service and repair to our underground facilities. This was originally awarded as a 3-year contract, which fell under the $5 million threshold. So this first extension of that 3-year contract will fall above the threshold to $5.55 million. So we're seeking approval from the board.
Any questions for Abby? There be no questions. May I have a motion to recommend approval of the change order relative to the provisions of service and repair to underground utilities from Atlantic Control Systems, Inc., as presented on substantially the terms presented in this memo and any attachments, and that any authorized signatory, as defined in the policy on approved and execution of contracts and other binding documents, be authorized to negotiate the terms of any documents relating to such transactions on substantially the terms outlined in the enclosure, with any such changes and additional terms as are deemed necessary or appropriate by the authorized signatory.
Almond, so moved.
May I have a second?
Maria, second.
Thank you, Maria. Ask for a voice vote. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Yes. Opposed? This motion also passes unanimously. We have one more. It's consideration contracts in excess of $5 million. This one is about Performance Food Group. Abby, please.
Yeah, great. So Performance Food Group is a prime food vendor that supplies groceries and sundries to URI Dining. This contract has actually been approved by the board in the past, but we're seeking to extend the contract for 1 more year with an additional $6.6 million value based on expected spend for for the next fiscal year, which is in line with prior spend. So that brings the total contract value to $34 million. So we're seeking approval from the board on this.
Any questions? I was about to read this thing. I just dawned on me. We could have just combined all 3 of them in one thing, so save myself something. But
Well,
may
I
I
will
have a
say,
motion?
we used to do that, but I think there were challenges because if you didn't want to vote on
Yeah.
all 3, so we moved to
Yeah.
the 3 separate, in case anyone's wondering.
Yeah. You're just making me read this stuff. May I have a motion to recommend approval of the change order for the continued purchase of groceries and sundries from Performance Food Group, Inc., as presented on substantially the terms presented in this memo and any attachments, and that any authorized signatory, as defined in the policy on approved and execution of contracts and other binding documents, be authorized to negotiate the terms of any document relating to such transaction and substantially the terms outlined in the enclosure, with any such changes and additional terms as are deemed necessary or appropriate by the authorized signatory.
So moved, Maria.
May I have a second?
And again, the management development was added to the name of the committee to.
Sorry, we need a second.
Second.
I'll second it, Almond.
Thank you. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Yes. Opposed? This motion is also approved unanimously. There being no other items, I'll have a next item on the agenda is to, I want to thank Abby for being so well prepared and
Good job.
getting us through this meeting. Lots of information, and you had it all in good shape. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved,
moved.
Maria.
So moved.
Second?
Joe. Second,
All
Joe.
in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Passed, and we are adjourned. The next meeting of the Finance and Facility Committee is scheduled for October 27, 2025. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good